Hey everyone, Brian from Three Geeky Dads here. Before we begin tonight's episode, I just want everyone to know that we are now sponsored by Audible. As an IT professional for a school department, I find myself behind the wheel of my car traveling between schools almost all day long, and that's where Audible comes in. Right now, I'm enjoying listening to Douglas Adams' Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, read by Stephen Fry. It's so enjoyable to hear this hilarious audiobook read by a proper British comic actor. And that's just scratching the surface. Audible is the leading provider of spoken word content, with everything from bestsellers, celebrity memoirs, and news to podcasts. Yes, if you're into podcasts, and you're listening to us right now, so we can assume you do, Audible has got you covered. Just go to www.audibletrial.com/3GD to get your free 30-day trial today. That's www.audibletrial.com/3GD to get your free 30-day trial. You'll get 1 credit, 2 credits if you're already an Amazon Prime member. That's good for any premium selection titles you like, and they're yours to keep. You also get the Audible Plus catalog of podcasts, audiobooks, guided wellness, and Audible originals. Listen all you want, no credits needed. Again, that's www.audibletrial.com/3GD. $14.95 a month after your 30-day trial. Cancel at any time. Audible. Stay informed, connected, and inspired. And now, on with the show.
This is your 2-minute warning. This ship will self-destruct in exactly 2 minutes.
Launch all escape pods as soon as they are filled!
Hey, you're not permitted in there. It's restricted. You'll be deactivated shortly.
Hey, I assume you tried to gain control of the escape pod in Dock 14.
Yes, I tried to gain control. There's an escape pod in Dock 14?
Hey, that's my escape pod! Who are you? I'm the bearded lady! But are you one of the freaks?
According to this, there's a single occupant escape pod called the Deus Ex Machina.
Escape pod was jettisoned during the fighting. No life forms were aboard.
She must have hidden the plans in the escape pod.
Hey, look! There's a prize inside that box of hamdingers. An escape pod.
Open the pod bay doors, Hal.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
All right, everyone, and welcome to another Escape Pod brought to you by the Three Geeky Dads. With me, as always, is my good friend, fellow horror hound, writer, artist, filmmaker, and someday I'll get him into Rob Zombie movies, Dean Kaluzdian.
Hello.
Hello, Dean. Welcome back, sir.
Thank you for having me.
No problem at all. I feel like I haven't seen you in like a day.
Right. Mark is referring to the fact that both of us went to a horror convention.
We did. We went to the Silver Scream horror convention in Danvers and got to meet some really cool people. Got to meet Joe Bob Briggs, Darcy the Mail Girl, Adam Green, Joe Lynch. I snuck in a picture with Skeet Ulrich. And you got to listen to Tommy Lee Wallace talk about Halloween.
Yes, for a very abbreviated 20 minutes since he had to leave early. So
that's right. And the reason we went was to meet Tom Atkins, who unfortunately ended up canceling.
Let's bow our heads in a moment of silence.
You could hear our hearts breaking.
Yeah, we did not. We did not get to meet Tom Atkins. We didn't even get to meet Christopher Atkins. I would have settled for at that point.
Chris Atkins, skip a stone like that. No, we didn't get to meet any Atkins actually, but we still had a good time.
I guess we were on the Atkins diet.
Hey, it's nice to be on any diet for me for a change. No, you gotta leave Brian's gonna leave that in there. So what do we got going tonight, Dean?
Okay,
we're back. We're here with a double feature.
Right.
Yep.
And so tonight is our tourist attractions episode.
We're going on tour, baby.
So the other night, Jen and I were just looking for something to watch, and because of the Into the Darkness documentary, I realized I had never seen Tourist Trap. So we remedied that by watching Tourist Trap. And I enjoyed it, so I said, you know what, let's do that as our podcast. It's great for me when I discover a horror movie that has been around and people know that I haven't seen, and I was very excited to see it. And so I thought it would pair just delightfully with Motel Hell.
Absolutely.
They share some... if we were to do a triple feature, it would have been our triple feature.
Psycho?
Psycho would be the...
Because, we'll get to it when we get to Tourist Trap.
But American Gothic, if you haven't seen American Gothic.
With Rod Steiger and
Michael J. Pollard.
Yvonne DiCarlo and Michael J. Pollard, yes. I have seen that. Again, a long time ago, similar to Tourist Trap, which I had seen once many years ago, did not remember it, so I got to rewatch that, and that was a trip. But I love Motel Hell, man.
I do
was
too.
Pleased with this
so
one.
We've got kind of one that I'm not as familiar with, and then we've got Motel Hell, which
That's right.
I have enjoyed for many years.
So you want to jump into our first feature?
Yeah, so let's start talking about Tourist Trap.
Give me your opening. Okay, so you had never seen it.
I had
seen it once a long time ago. What did you think of it?
It's a little bonkers. Like it's kind of it was not at all what I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be a straight up, a cheap slasher knockoff. I should have known when I saw Charles Band's name come up in the beginning, and even as I'm watching it, I'm like, oh, there's a lot of stuff that is, reminiscent of Puppet Master. And then I just realized it's the same director. Literally, as we're looking this up before we started, because I was like, I should check what the director did. He also did Puppet Master.
Yeah.
So there's
Charles
a lot
Band,
of...
the founder of Full Moon, pretty much. Yeah.
But the director is, David Schmaler.
Yep. I got that here, yeah.
So he did Puppet Master, and so there is a lot of the mannequins have that same kind of goofy ventriloquist dummy puppet mouth and there's a lot of puppetry in this movie.
There is. The whole thing is really like a dream, and it's a very bizarre and surreal movie. Not your typical, stop at a hotel with strangers and they end up being cannibals or anything. This guy ends up having, in effect, he ends up having supernatural powers.
Yeah, see, that's what kind of makes it different. Is it is like, okay, you have the place is kind of a wax museum.
It is.
It's more of a like mannequin supply store. It really,
it's like that Twilight Zone episode where all the mannequins come to life on
the top floor
of the floor. Yeah.
And there was no Kim Cattrall in this movie at all.
No.
So that is the thing that makes this different, and as I said earlier, bonkers, is the fact that the killer isn't just a, like, I'm going to stab you, a Steph killer. He also has like supernatural powers and can telekinesis when you can throw things with your brain.
Yeah, absolutely. He can definitely. He's an X-Men for sure. He can make things move with his mind, and
they pretty much throw everything in but the kitchen sink.
Absolutely. The bonkers is the perfect word to describe it.
It is truly a bizarre movie, and I'm going to say up front that we are going to spoil this movie.
Oh yeah,
because it does have a little bit of a twist. So go and watch it now. Pause the podcast and go watch it.
That's right. It's on Freevee or No, actually, this one's on
Peacock.
Peacock, right?
Yeah,
and I think it's on Prime or Shudder or AMC, one of those channels.
Yeah, so
it's around.
This one we got to watch without commercials.
Yeah.
You watched one commercial and then you could enjoy your movie.
Well, I watched it again, and then I watched it with the Riff Tracks commentary, because Riff Tracks actually did this movie and made it hilarious.
Oh, I am going to have to watch that.
It is, if you're a Mystery Science Theater fans out there, you know what Riff Tracks are. Watch the regular film first, because when you watch Riff Tracks, they tend to make the movie more. I mean, it is a silly movie, but they tend to make it even more sillier than it is, and it definitely is. But their commentary to it is a riot. So
this movie stars Chuck Connors.
Yep, I love Chuck Connors. First of all, I just want to say Chuck Connors is a great villain. Everybody knows him from Rifleman, but I will always know him as Janos Skorzeny from Werewolf. The one season Fox show, which I've talked about many times on Three Geeky Dads, which is basically the Incredible Hulk, but the guy turns into a werewolf rather than a big green monster. And the werewolf responsible for this guy changing is played by Chuck Connors, and he was on for half of the season, and then he wanted more money, so he left. But for those episodes he's on, he is a remarkable villain, and you can kind of see that in this movie, but not as goofy or not as
he's pretty goofy.
silly.
In this. Yeah,
Like there's more of a serious menace to, like, he's taking this werewolf very seriously, and he's fantastic. So just want to throw that in there.
Yeah, he is pretty great. When we'll get to Motel Hell in a bit, but when you compare him and Rory Calhoun's performance wins hands down.
Totally.
Chuck Connors. Like he
owns this movie.
Yeah.
The only I think there are two reasons to watch this movie. One is Tanya Roberts, and the other one is Chuck Connors. And this performance is awesome because he's having a great time.
Apparently, he was on quite a bit of coke at the time.
That would explain so much.
One of the trivia notes on Wikipedia was that or IMDb. There's like very little like trivia outside of multiple things about how like bricks of cocaine were just falling from the sky. Like it was completely a drugged up set on for everybody.
That was the 70s.
But I cannot speak to the veracity of that, just that's what it...
Martin Scorsese made his best stuff on coke, so Chuck Connors, you're in good company, I guess. I don't know.
So the story starts off with Eileen and her boyfriend Woody are driving through the California desert.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this all happens super quick. Like it's kind of almost hard to keep track of who these characters are and what they're doing. So... girlfriend and boyfriend driving along, and for some reason their car breaks down, and he goes off to get gas, and she's waiting for friends to pick them up.
Right.
And so
she's like sunning herself by a camper or something like that. I can't exactly remember, and I just watched this too. But
it actually took me until later in the movie to figure out what the whole beginning, what they were doing and what actually
the beginning
happened.
of the movie is very strange and it's a little annoying. I will say that because the characters are all just there. You don't really get a chance to know them. You watch a guy push a tire toward the other guys for like a solid 5-10 minutes.
Have you seen the movie Rubber?
No, I haven't.
About the killer tire. No. I was actually thinking this is just like that. Except
somebody
watched
the beginning of Tourist Trap instead.
Yeah, so he ends up at a gas station.
Yep.
And
which in the 70s is always bad. It's never good to be in in a desert or in a gas station that looks like it's located in a desert. It just never.
Yeah, this is why I don't drive through deserts.
No, at all.
Nope,
I'm sorry. I thought I silenced my phone.
That was perfectly timed.
Look at that.
All right. So he ends up in the gas station.
Yep.
And he can't find anybody, but all of a sudden stuff just starts flying all over the place.
Yeah.
And
it's like something out of Carrie.
Yeah, it is. It is just the weirdest thing because I keep thinking like, okay, it's a tourist movie. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, they've got this place rigged up, and that's part of the thing. And it's just a regular killer who has all this stuff rigged up and it's all puppets and stuff. And no, it actually is telekinesis, and the killer is attacking him with mannequin heads. Like
everything comes to life. It's like Evil Dead 2 when the whole cabin comes alive and starts laughing. That's exactly what this reminded me of. Things come to life. The what do you call it?
There's a cupboard.
Wardrobe. There's a wardrobe cupboard that comes to life and starts flinging things at the guy.
Yeah, and it's kind of a fun effect. It's blatantly filmed, but for those of us who enjoy kind of seeing behind the curtain a little bit, they've filmed the cupboard on the ceiling and just were dropping stuff through, onto him, so it looks like it's flying across the room.
Work with what you have.
Yeah, so it's kind of a fun scene, and then
but it goes on.
Oh yeah,
forever.
It is.
There's one puppet that comes out and it starts laughing, and this just continues for like 10 minutes straight, while the guy who can't figure out how to get out of the most disheveled looking gas station. It looks like it's made of cardboard.
Like he literally could smash through the wall.
He's struggling with the door. He can't get out. Things are being chucked at him.
But the door could have been held closed psychically.
I guess so.
So I guess I'm going to stand up for...
I will let that fly. Sure.
So in the end, he gets pierced by a tube.
Yeah.
That then one of the few bits of gore, if you're going to call it that, in the entire movie, which this movie was actually rated PG, and the filmmaker was actually kind of shocked that he got a PG rating.
Well, it's really not that bad.
No, it has nothing in it. It has. We'll get to the skinny dipping scene.
Mm-hmm.
It has a Disney level skinny dipping scene.
Oh, there's no skinny.
But so he gets pierced with this tube and ends up the blood runs out of him through the tube, which is kind of a fun effect. And that is one of the few actual gore effects in the movie itself. So we leave him and go back to his girlfriend, who is then picked up by 3 of their friends who must have been traveling behind them. So you've got kind of a Carmine Ragusa looking guy with a cut-off shirt.
No sleeves.
No sleeves. And he's apparently a lawyer. So I guess that's what lawyers do on the weekends. They just wear their vests
They
and
either
cut
get
off their
bikes
sleeves.
or they cut off their sleeves and go on road trips.
And so it is the most 80s, but there's always a bad guy who has a vest on and sleeves.
You see him in Samurai Cop. I know it's not who you're thinking of, but I know that kind of movie.
So this guy and another woman who looks like an extra in Staying Alive. And then there's Tanya Roberts.
Well, there's Tanya Roberts who, again, helps. Because, she's just gorgeous.
Tanya Roberts, who, for those who don't know, was Sheena and also in Beastmaster. And in both movies that we're going to talk about, several people were on the Love Boat. Well, just about, if you look up everyone's IMDb on most of these, almost everybody made multiple appearances on the Love Boat.
Wow, see? It all connects. And then you got Jocelyn Jones as Molly, who I think last blonde girl. The survivor. Let's put it that way.
Eileen is the survivor. And Eileen looks like she just escaped from an Amish convention.
No. I'm looking at it. Eileen doesn't survive because she's the Robin Sherwood is Eileen, and she's the other dark-haired woman. The blondes in this movie are Tina and Molly.
Yeah. So all right. So
I will say maybe one of the most annoying heroines in horror history.
Oh my God! She is it is. One, they dress her when you go for it's the virgin that's going to survive. They're we're not only going to make her blatantly she's the virgin, but she is literally dressed like Holly Hobbie.
Yeah,
it is
just out of another time.
Right.
You've got two basically these two look like centerfolds, and you've got little Bo Peep right next to her.
And just she's almost wearing a bonnet. I think she is wearing a bonnet when it starts. It is literally walked off Little House on the Prairie. And forgive us for not remembering which character is which, because there is no character development
really
in this at all. Outside of this is the prissy one.
Yeah.
This is the disco topped one.
Well, she's the one that
this is Tanya Roberts.
Yeah, it's it goes from a level to decency to just Tanya Roberts, and Robin Sherwood is kind of in the middle. She's in the middle of the fence. So, but we all remember Tanya Roberts. Nobody remembers anybody else in this movie. The 2 guys in the film, John Van Ness and Keith McDermott as Woody and Jerry, they're not even in the movie for half of the time, and then when they do show up, they're not very useful. Although Jerry has that great rope chewing scene, which we'll get to. I'm jumping ahead, but
okay.
So
they find the lost oasis, a tourist trap, and of course they're it's funny because they're searching for help and they're complaining, and then they're like, oh my God, this is paradise, and
it isn't.
No, it is a waterfall, but it is blatantly a gross pond.
Yes.
And as someone who lives on a pond, the idea of climbing into that pond is oh, that's disgusting. Now let's go back to the PG-ness of this. So they promptly go to Skinny Dip, and of course our heroine is no, I can't go in there.
Nope.
It's and
it's indecent.
Is you right? Yeah. And so they jump in, and so apparently the director was shy about asking them to do the nude scene. And so he didn't ask them ahead of time. And once he did get up the guts, and this is just IMDb or Wikipedia info, that he was, that they were just like, no. And apparently the actress who played Eileen was in an earlier horror movie in which she filmed nude. And much like we talked about in Galaxy of Terror, they told her that they were just going to film around her nudity they wouldn't see her full nudity.
Yeah.
And they lied as they did in Galaxy of Terror.
Yeah.
And she was so angry about that in this one she's actually wearing a bodysuit when they're swimming, which you don't see anything like above the necks. It is like for an 80s, quote, slasher movie, which it's not a slasher movie.
No.
It is like, oh, like, why did they even write that scene into there? Like,
there's no reason for it at all. I mean, we know why they're trying to, because they got Tanya Roberts in it, and they want to, get guys in there, and so they make promises, but they're like, oh, we said they get nude. We didn't say we're going to show the nudity.
Right. Which ironically, it's the two kids movies that Tanya Roberts does that she does the skinny dipping in, which this one is totally like modest, and then you've got Beastmaster and Sheena, and both are like, famous for Tanya Roberts' nudity. And
fool me once, shame on you.
Right?
Yeah. Oh well.
So I did not see this one as a kid. I did see those as a kid and enjoyed both movies. So they then meet Chuck Connors.
Yep.
Who shows up, pond side and
complete with a rifle.
Yeah.
As if to just say, hey, remember me in Rifleman?
Right.
Get ready for some shit.
He's pretty much Uncle Jed from the
Beverly
Hillbillies.
Yes.
And just kind of like shows up and is like, what are you kids doing?
How are you?
You better watch out because there's water moccasins after midnight. And
I love how he's just talking to him like,
it is.
Used to be I charged people for swimming in this pond. Did you really? People paid to swim in this thing? 75 cents it cost me. But then the highway, that was his big thing. Always talking about the highway
coming in. It's always the highway coming
just
in.
like Psycho. I think this movie shares the same universe as Psycho, because Norman Bates' hotel was screwed over by the highway, as was this one. So I'd like to believe that these two exist in the same universe, and that at some point Chuck Connors and Norman Bates met at a supermarket and said, how's your gas station doing? The damn highway. How's your hotel? The damn highway. How's your dead wife? Is she still made of plastic? Yeah. How's your mother? Still a corpse? Yeah. That's what I did to amuse myself during some of the slowness of
directed by John Woo. No, who directed Jason vs. Freddy?
Ronnie Yu. Ronnie Yu. Yeah.
The Bride with White Hair.
Yeah. I don't speak his name.
We meet Chuck Connors. Mm-hmm. He takes them. He's like, you guys can come back. I'll give you a place to kick back while you get your car fixed. And so he brings them back to his tourist trap, which is, like we said before, a mannequin repository. I'm not sure what type of. There was. Davy Crockett was one of them.
Davy Crockett, who lived in the house, or that's what we said, lived in the strange house behind the gas station. Very Texas Chainsaw Massacre life. But it's the people who live in the. I call it a shack because it looks like a shack on the inside. It's not glamorous at all. Are all like mannequin figures with movable. They're like animatronics. A lot of Confederate soldiers and this. I think is there a custard?
Yeah, it is
Yeah.
kind of historical, but they're so basic. And then they have like some very realistic looking ones, which are blatantly just people standing still.
Yeah.
Like James Bond and Scaramanga's gun shootery that they just had Roger Moore standing there. So he says that he's going to help Jerry fix the car. And so they leave, and he's like, girls, don't go look outside at that house next door. Like, whatever you do, don't go to the house next door. Like, because there's no reason to go to the house next door. And so he leaves with Jerry, or leaves. They kind of drop Jerry. Jerry's not even in the scene. He's just like, I'm going to go out and help him. And so we're pretty much like, all right, Jerry's gone.
Yeah.
And so Eileen is like, I'm going to go check the house next door because obviously I'm still looking. They're still looking for Woody. So she's going to go find Woody in the house next door.
Which is very funny when we say looking for
Woody.
Yeah,
They lost their Woody at the beginning of the movie.
And that's three girls looking for their Woody is really what's the next hour of this film is literally them going into the shack and Chuck Connors coming back in. Where's so-and-so? Oh, she went out. Oh, shouldn't have done that. It's dangerous. I'll be back. Stay here. He leaves. Another one goes out. Chuck Connors comes back. Where did she go? Oh, she went out. It's going to be dangerous. And you can't, I got to tell you, I'm noticing a theme from Texas Chainsaw Massacre to House of a Thousand Corpses with these people. We see them as the bad guys, but they do tell them not to go. If you watch Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the gas guy who ends up being the brother in the house, I can't remember his name, but tells those kids, you don't want to go up there. You don't want to take those girls up there. Of course, they don't listen to him. Same with this movie. Chuck Connors tells them, don't go in that house. Just stay here.
So do you think that they wouldn't have gotten killed had they not gone to the house?
In Texas Chainsaw, yes. In this movie, I want to say...
I'm going to say no. They're
probably Motel Hell too, and we'll get to that. You know, the people.
This one, and like Motel Hell, like Rest Stop, is that the name of it? Where they're spiking the road, and like blatantly, he's causing the breakdowns of the cars.
Oh, that's true. He's hunting. So
yeah.
But when the swinger couple shows up, well, what we're getting at
in Motel,
there is a moment in that I feel like they try to get. They try to be a little civilized with that. And in House of a Thousand Corpses, Sid Haig tells him, what the hell? No, you don't want to go looking for Dr. Satan. Why do you want to do that? Turn around and go home. So in the point with all these road movies that end up in these houses with the killers try to talk them out of it. Like they're actually trying to be decent at some point. Whether they're just subconsciously like really don't want to kill them, but they have these urges they can't control, or they're just fucking with them because they know they're going to do it anyway.
All right, so let's jump to, it really is, there's not a lot to talk about in kind of the way this goes back and forth. So we're just going to kind of jump
you can go further.
We get a reveal, and there's one point where the killer, who is a mannequin-faced, like he's got a mask on with the movable jaw, has kind of gone in and kills the first woman, Eileen, with her neckerchief.
Yeah.
He psychically chokes her with her neckerchief.
Yeah, it stiffens up the scarf and yeah.
And then Tanya Roberts and we already know that not Woody, Jerry has disappeared. Mm-hmm. And so now the Amish girl goes and is making a run for it, and she escapes the killer, and she gets picked up, which is kind of the thing that always happens by Chuck Connors. And Chuck Connors
this is incredibly annoying because another reason this is not a slasher film. The girls in this movie are really stupid. Like the killer is clearly Chuck Connors. Like a 6-year-old could figure this out right away. And throughout the whole movie, Chuck Connors
are the spoilers I was talking about.
Yeah, well they know. They know now. Chuck Connors is killing, and then he literally disappears in costume, comes back, tries to kill, disappears. It's like Superman and Lois in the old 70s movies.
Well, I have to admit, I wasn't sure.
Oh, I was.
But
I could recognize the voice because, he tried to hide his voice, but it's impossible.
Because I was already going through the Texas Chainsaw Massacre thing of, all right, well, I'm the kindly old man, mm-hmm. but I'm protecting my little, because he keeps talking about his brother who moved away.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And you're thinking like, okay, he knows his brother is a killer and he's protecting him, but we don't know he's protecting him.
See, I figured his brother was dead, or he was made of plaster and mannequinized, or whatever you want to call it. That's what I picked up on right away. But you could just, Chuck Connors is a specifically, like, he's a built guy. not too many people look like him.
Yeah.
So if you have another 9-foot, broad-shouldered guy with just a mask on, odds are you're gonna figure it out.
So then once you realize that kindly Uncle Jeb
Yeah.
is really the killer.
Which would be okay if they didn't keep going back with this kind of repeated beat where, oh, it's you, Mr. Slozen. Oh, wait a minute, you're the killer? And every character has this reveal.
It is redundant.
Yes,
the movie
it is.
has a lot of, okay, now we're going to escape. Because the other thing that's odd about this is you think he's killed everybody, but then he just has them tied up in the cellar.
Yeah.
And then they kind of introduce a new character that's tied to the table, which we thought was Eileen. And I kept being like, no, they just said that it's someone else, but it looks like her.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't get introduced to this woman that he apparently hunted at a gas station. And like he's out hunting these people and bringing them back.
Yeah.
And turning them into mannequins themselves. But like his process that they show in it is basically him just lumping a bunch of gunk on the face, and they never like kind of show. But there is a part later on where I call her the Amish girl.
Yeah, Molly.
Molly, that thinks she's escaped, and all of a sudden Jerry is coming to rescue her.
So I love this ending. This ending makes it worth seeing because he ends up shooting Chuck Connors, right? And Chuck Connors is this the one where he shoots with blanks?
No.
Am I right, or am I thinking?
She shoots Chuck Connors
with the blanks.
With the blanks,
All right.
which was kind of cool too.
Yeah.
Because that's the reveal of it being Chuck Connors.
Okay.
Because she shoots the guy in the mask.
Right.
Because Chuck Connors gave her the gun to protect herself, quote, from him.
Okay.
So that's when we get the gun. Later on, he comes in and kind of attacks Chuck Connors. It doesn't make a lot of sense because, like, it's kind of like, well, why did he do that? Because he kind of was starting to rescue her. And then Chuck Connors is like, well, he's not going to rescue you. And he just twists off the head, and he's one of his puppets.
Yeah.
So it's...
which I did not see coming.
Right. It is
honest.
just, I was actually looking down and had to rewind after Jen was like, that's great. So, and I was like, I got to see that. Like, so this movie has a lot of fun beats.
It does.
It is redundant. The characters are all lame. Outside of us just being like, well, I love Tanya Roberts.
Yeah, it's bizarre. It leads you to think it's going to be a slasher film or a House of Wax kind of movie, and it ends up almost being like it's kind of like a twisted fairy tale kind of movie because everything just gets a little surreal once you get in there. You got somebody with telekinesis. You've got the weird Pino Donaggio score, which at times I feel is very off. I don't think it helps.
It is. Apparently, he did work on the original House of Wax too. I think.
Oh, did he?
He did. I might be getting that wrong, so don't quote me.
Well, I know he did the music for The Howling. And he did the score for that. And as much as I love the score to The Howling, there are moments even in that film where his scoring is a little off.
Jen pointed out that the score feels like it comes from a much older movie. That kind of feel to it. And but overall, like, the score does feel a little archaic to the film and doesn't quite match up.
And like some of it works, and I just don't think some of it matches up well at all.
Yes.
But,
So in the end, she does kill him and ends up, the capper of the movie is very fun that, you see her driving away and she just has the mannequins of all her friends.
Yeah.
They're just blatantly mannequins.
Well, that part was awesome. The big reveal of all her friends showing up dead at the end. That's a very slasher-esque kind of thing. And all the mannequins start turning and their mouths are opening. And I love before he dies when he starts dancing with the mannequin.
Yeah.
And she starts seeing it come to life at certain times. He's spinning her around. There's this whole ballroom dance scene. And when Molly would catch a glimpse of this mannequin's face, it would be a real person.
Yes.
And I thought that was very cool.
And there was a mix of real people. And Linnea Quigley was one of the mannequins, uncredited.
Oh, no kidding.
That too,
oh, awesome.
From what I've read.
As research tells me.
I was not there.
Excuse me. But I love when she screams and then it cuts to that shot, or it fades to the shot of her in the car. This is a very good ending to a movie that I thought was good.
And so hopefully everybody paused the podcast so we haven't ruined all of this.
That's right.
So
we warned you otherwise, but still see it. I think it's a little slow, but I think the payoff is worth it.
Yeah, it's slow, but it's short. It's wacky. It's different. It was a pleasant surprise because I really did just think it was going to be a guy in a mask killing a bunch of kids that show up at a tourist attraction.
That's right. Yeah.
But it did have, and again, I guess the House of a Thousand Corpses is, does owe a little bit to this too.
Everything from going into the gas station and going on Captain Spaulding's murder ride can be compared to this film. So if you are a Rob Zombie fan, if you do like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Last House on the Left style kind of film, this is, like Dean said, it's PG. This is like a Disney version of all that, basically. It's not, I don't think it's scary at all. There's a couple of creepy shots in it, but again, like Dean said, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, there's no gore, gore, no nudity, but still worth seeing.
Yeah.
So let's
Shall
go.
We jump?
Yeah.
Shall we take a break?
Yeah,
go to the lobby?
Yeah, let's go
all
get
right,
ourselves
cool.
a snack.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
All right, welcome back for part 2. This is our second feature. And what are we talking about, Dean?
Motel Hell.
Motel Hell, starring, and I'm going to blow his name,
Rory
Calhoun, Paul Linke, Nancy Parsons, Nina Axelrod, and as a preacher, Wolfman Jack.
And don't forget John Ratzenberger.
And John Ratzenberger's in this movie with no lines.
He does
lines.
say...
He just goes,
Yeah. So Motel Hell.
So
great.
Our last film, Tourist Trap, we talked about the kind of Disney sort of safe quality this movie had. Motel Hell is not that at all. Motel Hell is not a gore fest.
Yeah,
but it's disturbing. It's got some disturbing stuff.
I would say they're both. I won't say one is more Disney than the other because really they're not Disney.
Oh, I don't know. I see. I'm going to disagree. This one has some more disturbing stuff.
This one has some nudity. It doesn't have gore. Like listening to the director talk about it, he was very much like I hope you realize that this isn't a slasher movie.
Oh, it isn't
because it does. It is like it has a lot of visual comparisons to Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But, and kind of both of them do, you're going to these rural, deserty areas, stumbling into a house that you don't know, and there are people with chainsaws. But outside of that, it really doesn't, and there's cannibalism.
Well, there's also, cannibalism, and Tobe Hooper was set to direct this movie too.
Oh yeah, it's funny is the director in the commentary on this one actually talked about what a genius Tobe Hooper was, and he said he had seen a Texas Chainsaw Massacre and would say these things are similar, but there is this is not a slasher by any means, and Texas Chainsaw Massacre doesn't have any gore in it.
No.
Really either. So
no.
This one has just a little bit of, a little late in the movie, there's just a tiny bit of blood.
I'm going to say these are like the cousins of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the Leatherface family, whatever, if you will. But they're a little higher in class. Not too much, but they can afford a nicer place. They're better dressed and better educated and well mannered.
Yeah, it is. The movie's fun.
Yeah,
it is.
I love this movie.
It is. There is such a sweet evilness to it. It's wicked.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a good way to it's so much fun and. It's you want to talk about what it's about, and we can
let me.
get
I'm gonna do the Wikipedia thing. Forgive me, guys. It's been a busy week, so I had to watch the movies and didn't have time to outline it personally. So, I'm basically gonna tell you that it stars, again, Rory Calhoun and
so
Paul
if you've seen
Rory Calhoun.
If you've seen the Puppies episode of The Simpsons. He's Mr. Burns like, who does that dog is standing? Who does that dog remind me of? The one who stands. And Smithers says, Rory Calhoun.
Oh, all right. Okay.
And so then later in the episode, they're going to save the things. And he looks at Bart and Lisa and is like, look at you standing like a couple of Rory Calhouns. Rory Calhoun, who also starred in How to Marry a Millionaire.
He's a very dapper gentleman.
Not in this.
No, but he kind of is, though. I mean, he's got the overalls on, and in the end, he puts a pig head on.
So
we'll get to that.
He's an old man.
Yeah. So he's playing. Oh, okay.
I'm going to point
Throw
out,
it in.
like, so when he filmed this, he's only 5 years older than me.
Oh man.
Right?
Well, I think he had a harder life, though.
He did.
I know
Yeah,
he had cancer at the time. He was sick during a lot of his
did he?
filmmaking.
Was he?
Yeah. I remember hearing about that.
I had heard he was a little bit of a rabble-rouser in his time, too.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I wasn't there. I
No.
just heard. But yeah, he was 58
Wow.
when he made this movie. He looks no younger than 70.
As my buddy Brian always says, people looked a lot older back then.
Yeah,
There's a lot
yeah.
of smoking and stuff going on. I mean, Wilford Brimley, I don't know how old
I was about
he
to
is.
say, he's making Wilford Brimley
Well, I think
like
Wilford Brimley
Justin
was
Bieber
19
at
in
this
the
point.
thing. No. All right, so yeah, we've got Farmer Vincent Smith and his younger sister Ida live on a farm with an attached motel named Motel Hello, which is the ultimate gimmick because the O is blinking on and off. There's a little electrical problem making it look like it's Motel Hell. And obviously the movie lives up to the name until the very end of the film when the O finally blows a fuse and the sign is just Motel Hell. So the whole film is like this sign's trying to hold on to keep it from being a total chaotic nightmare, but it loses at the end. And they're renowned for their smoked meats, which are actually human flesh. But they're
pork mixed. Let's
Right.
be clear. It's not 100%
No,
human flesh.
there's
though.
other meats in there. There's pork.
It's mixed with the pork. He's
Right.
very specific.
But it's world famous.
It is world
Yeah,
famous.
everybody loves it.
World famous in the local area.
Right.
As they've that is, and later on they do have someone who's like, have you tried these? Like, this guy's famous for his meats. Like, and it's like, if you're from around here.
Well, they got a couple like chowing on it right away, if I'm not mistaken. As soon as you get to the hotel, there's a couple chewing on some of the jerky.
Yeah, there's a family that's leaving with their two little girls.
That's right, and they're kind of out of high society. They're all dressed up very nice, and the girls are dressed up like Kim Richards in Assault on Precinct 13, just with the pigtails. That they look like Vicky from Small Wonder. Just
they're
yeah.
totally and maybe twins. Mm-hmm. I won't assume they're twins.
And they go in and they go to the, I guess you would call it the smokehouse, which is this stone foundation kind of setting there, whatever you want to call it.
The butcher area.
Yep.
They have the pigs there.
And Ida follows them, and you think those girls are not coming back.
Yeah. So my introduction to this movie was, and we're not going to talk about Siskel and Ebert, but I'm going to tell you.
You can talk about Siskel and Ebert. I'm on my best behavior.
Okay. I just don't want you to talk about Siskel
we don't rant on this. I do enough ranting. Yeah.
So, watching Siskel and Ebert at the movies when I was a kid, they showed this scene. And it scared the bejesus out of me. Like so Ida has a pig head on. You don't realize it's her at the time. And pops out with this pig head on. And it freaked me out as a kid seeing this thing. And that's how I was introduced to Motel Hell. I didn't see it till much later. But that was my introduction. I don't know. I probably came out when I was like 10. Yeah, so totally creeped out by that scene on Siskel and Ebert.
My introduction to this movie was not even the movie. It was an episode of The Facts of Life. where the girls go and see a slasher film. And they come back from the slasher film. The episode starts with them coming back home after seeing the film, and Tootie is really shaken up by the film, and she can't stop talking about how scary it is. And then she has a dream where one by one, everybody in the cast is murdered, and they can't figure out who the killer is.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't remember this at all.
Look it up. It's on YouTube. In fact, I revisited
the facts of
death. And there's a moment where they have a dream within a dream where you think Tootie wakes up from her dream, and then there's a knock at the door, and she opens the door, and there's a guy with a pig head and a chainsaw. Now, I remember seeing that scene, and that freaked me out because I was a little kid when I saw this. And when I was a couple years later, when I started getting into horror, I was telling a friend about that scene, and he said to me, well, that's from an actual movie. It's called Motel Hell, and the guy's got a pig in a head and a chainsaw. I'm like, oh, really? Not being scared. That was my first introduction to seeing that film.
That's funny.
Yep.
Oh, I'm totally going to have to look that up.
Look it up. I can't remember the name of the episode, but one of the girls ends up being the killer, and it's hilarious. This is the era where you have Andy and Cloris Leachman and George Clooney is in it, so it's one of the later seasons, I want to say.
Huh.
Yeah. Fun fact. There you go.
That's,
you learn, you never know what you're going to learn.
Right. You learn about the facts of life.
The facts of life. That's all I've got.
So, also, speaking of the facts of life, the Ida is played.
Ida is, Dean is choking. I poisoned him. Is it Nancy Parsons?
It is Nancy Parsons. Nancy Parsons, who played Ballbricker in the Porky's movies.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
She is great. She's awesome in this
She
film.
is fantastic.
She is great in this movie. And you know what? In all the promo pictures and posters, she looks like she's going to be one of those hick, mad, wacky Texas Chainsaw kind of wacky characters. But she's not. She's actually subtle and well-spoken. Again, and she gets a little childish, but when it's time to turn on the charm to lure people in or to fake them out or whatever, she's really does it very subtle. It was a surprise.
Yeah, kind of unlike Chuck Connors in the other movie.
Mm-hmm. Well, both of them, really. Yeah.
This movie is 100% lifted by the performances of Rory Calhoun and her.
Absolutely.
Their relationship, the way that they kind of just so sweetly think that they're doing the right thing and kind of almost enjoying what they're doing. Mm-hmm. When they kill the health inspector.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
And just the way they're both so the health inspector sneaks in at night because he's
pulls a surprise inspection.
Yeah, surprise inspection. He kills Bob, or no, doesn't kill Bob. We'll get to what he does in a second, but he just smiles and is like, surprise inspection, Bob. Mm-hmm. And then later on, he's like, Ida, I got you a surprise, and he pulls the bag off of Bob's head, and Ida's like, Bob.
Yeah, it's almost like they undersell it. It's just another day on the farm, literally, for them. It's like anybody saying, well, one of the chickens got out or one of the cows got out, but we brought him back. They're very passive about this. They're like, oh, Bob, how are you?
Yeah, and they do. So I'll let you go on about
the plot is basically just this. It's just people showing up to the motel, and it starts out with actually Vincent hunting for a couple of basically he needs his meat, right? He's got to get meat to cook. So he uses the what do you call them? The spike. The cops use them to flatten tires. I'm sure there's a name that I'm blanking on because I'm kind of an idiot. But it's used to stop tires. It's you lay out the tracks of spikes, and it stops a man and a woman, Bo and Terry. And they're driving by on a bike and cart, and the thing flips over, and they're both rendered unconscious. And Bo, you believe, is dead, and the girl is brought back to the motel and being cared for by Ida and Vincent. And she kind of stays to help around the house. She's sort of entranced by Vincent for whatever reason. She's got a thing for older men, and I mean really older men, because this is a very young girl. And she wants to know what happened to her boyfriend, and they said, well, I buried him. Because that's what you do.
Yeah, and then
the sheriff shows up.
The sheriff shows up, who turns out to be their little brother.
Yes.
And he is actually, I don't have his name in front of me, but
I think I think he's Paul Link.
Yes, and he was an actor on Chips.
Mm-hmm.
He was kind of the goofy guy.
Right. In fact,
Chips.
he had to lose weight he lost weight for this part, I believe. Like, he was a lot heavier in that show.
He's still a little dumpy on this.
He is. But he's great. He's great in this movie.
He's great. He's a little, so he ends up on a date with her and takes her to the drive-in.
Yeah.
Which is, they're at like makeout point, and using his like cop stuff, he sends everybody away.
Well, it's a great scene, right? He's like, oh, hold on, wrong tree. And he puts the lights and the speaker on. Okay, everybody clear out. And there's like 9 or 10 cars. So, a couple of naked people come out of the car running for no reason other than to show people we have nudity in the movie, because then they just get right back in the car and drive off. But that was a funny scene.
And but then he pretty much assaults her. Like, she shows no interest in him, and he doesn't take no for an answer.
Yeah.
And it is like, all right, this is the guy who we've kind of led to be kind of the more hero-y guy of the story. And he's a total creep.
Yeah.
And Jen and I were going back on, like, is this, Hollywood of the 70s, is that, like, how acceptable was that behavior? And I wouldn't even say it was acceptable. It was like really
definitely
unsettling.
Definitely not acceptable, but unfortunately it was common in all those films to have a character do that. And I think what made it worse was you were supposed to like him again toward the end.
Yeah, you couldn't.
No.
Yeah, it was...
If he had been just as despicable as the others, then okay, that scene is warranted. She finds out he's a creep, he's a rapist, and he gets his comeuppance like everybody else. But the fact that they tried to sidestep that and kind of make him likable again, you just can't do.
He does, it is. I feel like whether they kind of purposefully left it gray for him, because later on, he does come back, and when he's trying to talk her out, we'll get to her getting married, but he's trying to kind of talk about what a creep Farmer Vincent is, and what his brother is, and he does it in a very also aggressive, semi-abusive way.
It's semi-abusive. It's pathetic. It's not a good fit. It's the one thing that's a little off, and that's saying something, being that this whole movie is pretty whacked out in a good, fun way. But the whole movie plays as this kind of they call it a dark comedy. But to throw that in there, you're getting it was clearly for shock value. You had Last House on the Left coming out, and that was the most talked about film. So I feel like everybody took a cue from that, and unfortunately had to put those kind of scenes in simply to just shock and get people shocked.
So the director, who also directed the Amicus film From Beyond the Grave, was his first movie. He actually, when he first got the script, found it far too crass and crude, and actually toned it down and took a lot of stuff out. So that might have been something that was originally in the script.
I feel like that's probably what happened.
And so it is. That's kind of the only misstep for the movie for me.
I would have to agree.
Scene, because it really does. I don't feel like you have to like all the characters, and it would have been okay to play him as a creep, but you weren't really quite sure how to feel about him.
I mean, I feel like him going in for the kiss would have been enough. There's no need to tackle her and get on top of her. It's just like, okay, you're becoming another movie now. Step back from that.
It is. And then it is, he wouldn't have stopped if there wasn't someone being attacked by Farmer Vincent that pulls them away. So,
and again, which whether it's done on purpose or not, it kind of makes him more sinister than Vincent or Ida, because what they're doing, they're basically doing because they feel they're doing God's work. They talk about karma, they talk about how they're blessed, and Vincent talks about how he's able to be creative. You know, both of these movies, what do they have in common? Both of the killers are creative. They're artists. What do I always say? Artists, you know, if we didn't have our art, this is what we'd be doing.
Okay. So what we haven't talked about is what they're actually doing.
So what they are doing is they're finding people and planting them. Ida has a garden, and they knock people out with gas, and then they bury them in her special secret garden with only the heads, you know, a la Ted Danson and Creepshow, and their throats have been slit so they can't scream and they can't talk. They can only make grudge sounds. They can go, that's them through the whole thing. And they have these sacks over their heads, you know, as a way to kind of keep them fresh or ripe. And every now and then they'll go into the garden, lift the bags up and talk to them.
And feed them corn through funnels. And
in their eyes, they are taking care of them. You know?
They also play music to help them grow, which is one of the coolest things in this movie is this background music to help the people grow.
Oh, it's great. It's soothing
and
in a way.
It's this weird, like, ethereal music that makes it so creepy.
Yeah.
Like it really, you know, it's comical, it's weird, but it really is creepy.
Yeah. So after they get done eluding the sheriff and eluding Terry, Terry sticks around to help, thinking that they're just these eccentric farmers, but she's got nowhere to go right now, so she's going to stay with them. And the sheriff does his movie theater thing, which we've talked about enough. We don't need to talk about that anymore. She goes back to just staying with them, helping them. There's kind of this attraction going on between Terry and Vincent. But meanwhile, Vincent and Ida are doing their thing. They're continuing to capture people to add to their garden. And the next people they do is a band of, I guess you would just call them punk rockers.
They're not Rasputin. It is... Ivan in the Terribles. Ivan in the Terribles. And Ivan has a terrible beard.
I thought it was Alan Moore. Alan Moore is painted on the front of their van. I'm like, holy crap, Watchmen.
He's got this like sub-Party City beard going on.
Yep.
And John Ratzenberger is the drummer of the band.
That's right.
Early on, I was like, that's Cliff Clavin.
So that's now 3 Cheers actors that I know have been in horror films. George went in House, and I think Chud. No, I don't know if he was in Chud. But he was definitely
John Ratzenberger was in House too.
Right, and and then Ted Danson was in Creepshow. And I don't think Shelley Long, I can't think of anybody else who had a part in a horror film from that point. Maybe somebody, but I don't know. But anyway, I thought that was kind of funny. It's like, oh, you start off in a horror film, you're going to end up on Cheers. So the band is, they take out the band same way via road spikes, I believe. Road spikes is the word. Yeah. And they torch the van, and they take the bodies and put them in the garden, slit the throats. They do the same thing to the health inspector, and things keep just kind of going with that rhythm. In the meantime, you have Terry still kind of falling in love with Vincent. You've got Ida and Vincent and their relationship going. And I mean, Ida is Vincent's younger sister. They got a special bond. And you almost think it's going to be challenged by Terry's love for Vincent. And you find out it isn't, which I thought that was very good. That was a nice misdirection. At one point, I thought, oh, Ida's going to get jealous. There's going to be some weird incest thing, and Ida's going to kill Vincent and kill Terry, which ends up not being the case.
But she does try.
Well, she tries. No, she knocks out. She does try.
So
takes her out. It's almost like she realizes something, because they're in on it. The next time you think she's going to poison Terry, it ends out knocking her out. And this is right before they get married. I'm jumping ahead. I'm sorry, but Vincent then just looks at Ida and says, all right, she's out. Let's get to work. So, he was in on that.
Oh, so yeah, but she does. So Ida does. They go out.
They go swimming, yeah.
They go swimming, and this is, of course, the 80s horror movie. We do have nudity in this one, and they go out. Ida's wearing like a Victorian one-piece, like swimsuit. And they go out tubing, and Terry is wearing a sheer T-shirt, and they're both having just a wonderful. And you almost think that like she has a crush on Terry, like that. But she pulls out a little razor blade, and you think she's going to slice Terry's tube.
Yeah.
And she slices her own, and as Terry tries to help her, she pulls her out and tries to drown her, and Farmer Vincent just shows up in the middle of the lake and saves her.
Now, looking back, though, do you think she would have actually gone through with killing Terry, knowing what we know about the two of them and what their plan was all along? Or do you think she was for her own personal amusement? Do you think Ida was just fucking with her?
No, I think Ida didn't like the trespasser.
So you think she would have killed her all the way? You don't think she was just trying to play the line? See, I took it after, maybe she was just seeing how far she could go without going all the way. It was like a thrill thing for her.
No, I think she was just being a jealous little sister.
Right.
I don't, and even the director talked about saying, some people question whether they had a relationship, that Farmer Vincent and Ida had her.
Although
no, that's just weird.
At that point, though, she hasn't. Terry hasn't put the moves on Vincent yet, so Vincent is still clueless at that point. And once she does try to put the moves on him, he recoils and he says, "Well, we're not married yet." Well, obviously, that's not the case. Right. So by that point, Ida knows she has nothing to worry about.
Yeah, but
I think it's a ruse.
She becomes enamored with him because he rescued her. And so she now is hitting on Farmer Vincent, which is kind of, he's so much older than her. I'm not going to judge.
Yeah.
But it just is like this, and her boyfriend was just murdered or died not that long ago.
I thought she was going to find out and she was going to be right. I thought I had so many, when I first saw this, I remember thinking all kinds of different things. She's going to take over, or they're going to turn on Ida. Ida's going to turn. And it really wasn't the case at all.
And it's funny, even when she goes on the date with the deputy, it's didn't her boyfriend just die earlier that day? How... this isn't the most awkward thing about the date.
Everybody in this movie is a little weird. They're not all there. There's no normalcy.
Yeah, she's a bit off herself.
Yeah, she's a little off. I think the closest one to normal was the health inspector. To be honest, I mean, the band, the Ivan and the Terribles there, they weren't normal for sure. And then we jump to the end, but we got to get to the last victims very quickly. We got to talk about the swingers.
They are so good. They are so great.
They are awesome, but boy, what no offense, but man, the last four people I would want to see doing anything remotely swinger this is just for
the woman swinger is Elaine Joyce, who was a 70s TV stalwart. She was in, if you look up, because I was what do I know her from? And you just go through her
everything
credits, and
you
it's
saw on TV back then.
One episode of everything.
Yeah.
She was a comedian, did lots of silly stuff, was on The Love Boat multiple times, was on Murder. We're going through all right, this person was on both Murder, She Wrote and The Love Boat multiple times. Pretty much everybody in these movies, Chuck Connors, Rory Calhoun.
Yeah. It was a TV cast for sure.
And she's hilarious. They both are. I don't know who the actor was that played the other swinger, but they were hilarious. And he also plays, so there are two preachers in this, and one of them he plays two parts in it. He plays both the preacher and the swinger.
Oh, no kidding.
And then Wolfman Jack comes in, which we haven't mentioned. Wolfman Jack.
No, he's the one that plans to marry them. When Vincent decides to marry Terry, he's the one who's going to
He's going to officiate the wedding.
Officiate. Thank you. That's the grown-up word. Thank you very much. Dick Curtis and Ellen Joyce are the swingers. And,
so they show up.
They are hilarious.
They show up because the hotel is listed in a swingers pamphlet on like a place for swingers to go. Now, I didn't pick up on why that was there, but reading this Wikipedia abbreviation, it says that he put the ad in. Did you get that?
I didn't pick that up. I don't even think the second time.
I
thought they showed up.
Just because it's in Wikipedia doesn't mean that it's a fact.
Right.
But that would make sense. He's going to lure people. He's going to lure people in.
Yeah, because they jump right into that idea. Oh, yeah, bring your daughter if you want. They think Terry's their daughter, and they're very disgusting people. So they go into the room. They, they get cabin number 1. Of course, because, it's a little psycho reference there. If you go to a hotel and motel or whatever and anybody offers you cabin 1, don't take it.
Don't take it.
So they go in there and they get ready. They get their bondage stuff on.
And she's like using a whip
so
and
excited.
smashing. There's I think it's the William Tell overture. Like
it is.
That she's just like whipping stuff and just destroying the room with a whip.
Right.
And then
Vincent and Ida
come in
and they got ropes.
And they're like, oh yeah, baby. And the guy is wearing a dress or apron. I forget what it is.
I think it's a tutu.
It is just the goofiest, and they are like so excited to be bound and attacked by the two of them.
And gassed too. When Vincent brings out the gas and he gasps Guy first, he's all into it. He's like, oh, laughing gas, all right. And he's knocked out right away. And then Ellen Joyce is like, wait a minute, what kind of laughing gases? Never mind, they're already out, and they become part of the garden.
The garden.
That's right.
And then they use hypno wheels. They're going to pull out some bodies.
This scene is great. They got these hypno machines. They're hypnotizing the band, and it's time to get on your spaceship, they say. Time to go to Mars. You're going to have the ultimate trip. And Rory Calhoun has this great speech that he says during this whole thing about how you're going to go to Mars and how you're going to be totally enlightened. Meanwhile, Ida's tying the ropes around each of the head, and then they get on the tractor and pull the bodies out. It's so good.
Yeah, and it's like it's like cage-free eggs. Like they are like vegan approved. They totally do this because it makes putting ropes around their necks and snapping the necks with a truck passive. Like it's the nicer way to.
Well, the thing is, up until the end, which we're going to get to now, but before we get to the ending, they're very elegant people. Like they look like your Hicks, but they're not. I mean, Vincent has this speech about karma and how they really feel like they're doing God's work.
They are. He compares himself to God, and it's like the man upstairs, and it's like, am I when he like smites you with a lightning bolt? I forget what the quote is.
Yeah.
There's so many great lines. We actually, neither one of us have said it yet, but it takes a lot of critters to make Farmer Vincent's fritters. And it's all meat. Man's got to eat.
Man's got to eat. They've got that nice little picnic, the sheriff, Terry, and them.
And they talk about eating their pet dog. Like that's the first thing that he ever
it's
cooked.
all meat.
Yeah, and that's where you get a sense that the brother is also a bit of a freak too, because he talks about eating the pet dog and is like, oh no, it was great.
Yeah, I gotta tell you, the social commentary that came out with these movies at the time, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Motel Hell, the whole like eating and not knowing where your food comes from. I mean, we still have this going on today, where we look at these films and we're disgusted by the fact that they're feeding humans to people. But then, like, you turn around and you think of, I'm a fast food nut. I don't care I don't know what the hell's in half of the stuff I eat. We're eating preservatives and stuff. It's really funny.
There are no preservatives.
No, and that's the other thing. He really thinks he's doing good. He's like, I don't use preservatives. They get it fresh. He's No, it's like a farmer saying no hormones in these cows.
We are going to reveal a giant spoiler.
Oh, we
in a
are.
few
Let's
minutes.
get to that too.
All right.
Okay, so finally, all the victims are in the garden. You have the marriage taking place, or seemingly about to take place, of Vincent and Terry. When it's almost wedding time, Ida brings in wine and they're champagne. They're gonna have a toast. That's when Ida poisons Terry's drinks to knock her out, and that's when you find out, Vincent was in on it. At this point, he says, "Okay, she's out," and then it cuts to them preparing her. Getting ready to prepare her. And this is when our, quote unquote hero, Sheriff, comes back to try to rescue her.
And he's got syphilis of the brain.
Yeah, he is trying to warn her.
But he warns her in the most, that he's just as bad.
He is.
Really, he is the creepiest hero that ever. And again, I don't know if he was supposed to be or not, but it still kind of works. I just hope that after the movie's over, they don't end up together. Or if they do, she fell for Farmer Vincent too, who actually, if you don't know that he's a cannibal that cooks people, murders and cooks people, you'd actually think he's a pretty nice guy. So,
yeah.
Because, you can't judge people by their worst acts.
No, you can't. You can't judge by what they eat. We'd all be in trouble.
Right? All right. So cannibals are people too.
They are.
People.
They are people, and people are in them.
One of the zombies, who I think is her boyfriend,
right?
Is it Joe? Is that
Bo?
Bo.
Yeah.
He struggles loose because the soil was moved.
Yep.
And
helps the others
out.
And then there's this armada. I like how you call them zombies.
Well, they said it's an homage to George Romero.
It definitely
the producer actually.
they are kind of brainwashed. They've all had those hypno lights on them and stuff, so why not? They are moving like zombies.
And they actually, the shot, there was a little making of feature on the DVD, and they had the producer, the writer, and he's like, this is our George Romero shot.
Oh,
and
that's
so
cool.
When they're walking through the fog, the quote zombies, the people who were being fixed to be eaten or fixed to be cooked, they are and they do attack like zombies too.
They come out of the ground. It totally makes sense.
Yeah. So meanwhile, Farmer Vincent has strapped
Terry
to a table, pure Perils of Pauline, or as the director described it, as a James Bond moment, that on the table with the saw cut, getting ready to cut her, and so in runs Bruce. I'm sorry, I'm messing up these names. Bruce comes to rescue her, and Farmer Vincent comes out with the pig head on, and they proceed to have
a chainsaw
fight,
which actually I think it's one of the best chainsaw fights I've ever seen. It's tough to do a chainsaw fight.
It's fun, and I think they kind of gave themselves credit on the person who was doing the audio commentary. Actually, this predated Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2.
Oh yeah.
Which the interviewer was asking the director, have you seen Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2? Because that borrows a little bit more from. It's kind of like, he borrowed a little bit from Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and then Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 kind of borrows a little bit, and a little more in tone too. I don't think you'd have Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 if you didn't have this movie.
I don't think so either.
But so we have the chainsaw fight, and the only little bit of gore in the movie really is, you've got a little bit of leftover blood and meat that is lying around on the table,
right?
And then
when Bruce Smith cuts into
Rory Calhoun, Vincent gets cut
in the side,
and it is a pretty hefty wound.
It
is a graphic.
But they don't. But he doesn't cut him all the way. Once he realizes Bruce cut Vincent too deep, he stops and then he tries to help him.
Yeah.
It's so weird.
And Vincent takes off the mask and is like, all of this is yours now. And there is
and he leaves it to them.
And he then, this is the big spoiler. So again, pause right now. But he reveals he used preservatives. And that's like he has to get like the greatest sin that he's committed is that he used preservatives in my meat. I used preservatives. It's not like I killed people. I used preservatives. So it kind of tells you. And so we also, Ida, at the same time while this thing is going on, is being attacked by the zombies.
By the zombie
These
grunting
are all,
people.
you know, have made their way up to the motel, and they are attacking her. And let's just take a brief sidetrack to say the fact that this is a motel plays very little into. It's called Motel Hell,
right?
And it plays very little into the plot. Like it's
you're not in the motel for very long.
Yeah,
you're in the room with the swingers. The rest of it is really in the garden,
right? And they're the only people who check in.
Yeah,
like it's not, you know, people showing up to the motel has nothing to do with outside of the swingers who they lured in with a swingers advertisement.
The title is just the gag in the movie. You know, Motel Hell is Motel Hello with the O gone, and that's really all it is. You're just basically there to see that gimmick, and everything else is a surprise. The movie is not about the motel; it's what's going on.
No, it's filmed on a ranch in California.
Yep.
Which a friend of mine sent me pictures of, and I didn't I felt stupid when he had to tell me what it was that he was sending me pictures of. And because it really doesn't, it's without the motel sign, it just looks like a ranch.
It's a for sure.
And it was used in one of the Rob Zombie movies.
Really?
Devil's Rejects, I believe.
Was it? Oh, yeah. I didn't look up the.
And there was another movie. This I don't even know if this was on the Wikipedia page, but it was in the commentary because the interviewer was like telling the director, who is an older Englishman. And I think he was like, oh, okay. Like, I didn't know that. Yeah. Which I'm sure these later movies just filmed there as a nod to Motel Hell.
You can see, Rob Zombie is predominantly the culprit in bringing the 70s cult films back into the limelight. Glimpses of it from Quentin Tarantino, but in terms of, and maybe Eli Roth too, but in terms of that grimy, visceral, savage sort of movie telling, Rob Zombie is mainly responsible for bringing the villains back into the, not just mass killers, but giving them personalities, making them comedic. And, whether you like his films or not, you can definitely see that he has a love of the villain being the star and not giving really a shit about the victims. The bad guys are the ones you find yourself siding with at some point, either in a film or in a follow-up film like Devil's Rejects, and that all comes from Motel Hell. That comes from Texas Chainsaw. That comes from Tourist Trap. That comes from these kind of films, these two films we're talking about tonight, where both films are held up by their villains. There's nothing else going. You have to like these people to stick it out with these movies. You've got to find something agreeable, something that you find attractive about these villains to stick it out through the entire duration of the film. And I think both films do that.
So I think if you haven't seen, you the listener.
Yes, you.
you
not
singular.
You. We've seen, yeah.
If you haven't seen this, you really should. Motel Hell is a classic.
Definitely.
I kind of wish there were more toys out of Motel. That's one thing on the commentary track. The guy doing these, like, there really should be like a Farmer Vincent figure. Like, I would totally buy that.
It's gonna happen at some point. We got the Shout Factory released the steelbook of the film with the pig head and the chainsaw. It's only a matter of time.
Yeah, no, it is. It's a wonderful movie. I did enjoy Tourist Trap.
I did too.
Motel Hell's a totally different level.
Yeah.
Like Tourist Trap's enjoyable. Motel Hell, if you enjoy, 70s, 80s horror movies, this is 1980, so it really straddles that. If you enjoyed that and you haven't seen this, you really need to.
Yeah.
And so...
they're horror films first.
Yeah.
But you definitely can't go looking at it like, oh, I'm going to be scared or grossed out. I'm going to have the same reaction to this like I would a Halloween film or a Hostel movie like this. You know?
Yeah, I guess I could kind of compare it a little bit with Shaun of the Dead, which is equally as solid a horror movie.
Sure.
It's a very different movie. I enjoy them both. Yeah, I guess it's a horror comedy.
Anyway, we're running off here, so we're going to wrap it up here.
So yeah, it's a great movie.
It is. Both of these are available. So Tourist Trap, you can check out. I believe I saw it on Tubi or Freevee.
And I watched it on Peacock.
Watch it on Peacock. Again, if you're a Mystery Science Theater fan, check out the Riff Tracks version. That's also on Freevee, I think. Motel Hell is on Tubi, but I recommend trying to find the DVD.
Yeah, Shout Factory has a great...
Yeah. Try to get it without commercials. Oh, Tourist Trap also, if you're on Shudder and you're a fan of Joe Bob Briggs, go back to season 1 of The Last Drive, and it's like one of the first movies he does. Now, that's all I got.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
All right. Good choices tonight, Dean. Good job. Anything you want to say, plug, shamelessly
we'll be
plug?
at, by the time you're listening to this, we'll probably be wrapping up at Granite State Comic-Con next weekend, but that will I'm pretty sure you won't hear this until after we're done.
Well, I hope you had a good time.
And then we'll be at Rhode Island Comic-Con selling our Suspicious Kitty t-shirts.
That's right. You got a new
horror shirt.
You got a new shirt coming out.
Suspicious Kitty shirt.
It's an awesome design.
Yep. Started off as the monster guy. Now I'm the kitty guy. And selling our book, The Stalking Dead.
Cool. And where can they find your stuff, Dean?
DreamsWithinDreams.com.
Nice.
Or theartofdean.com if you want to look at my artwork.
I like that. Mine's less impressive. Mine's Mark Macrina Art at Instagram.com. I'm happy to say I got word today that Werewolf with the Chainsaw issue 4 is being published and ready to go as we speak.
Nice.
So that'll be ready for Halloween. I'm super excited. And as always, don't forget to check me as well as my fellow dads over at 3 Geeky Dads. And I just happen to have our producer of this show and fellow geek dad, Brian.
Hello.
Hi, Brian.
Hi.
How are you?
I just came up from the sub basement to say goodbye.
Thank you for letting us use your equipment.
That sounds so dirty.
It is. It's meant to be. Brian, if they want to hear more escape pods or episodes of 3 Geeky Dads, where can they go?
They can go to www.3gdpodcast.com, as Mark said, along with one-click buttons where you will be able to subscribe to us. If you haven't already, please subscribe through one of those shiny buttons to the podcast platform of your choice, and that way you'll never miss an upcoming episode. Most importantly, this doesn't cost anything either. A 5-star rating and a review would go a long way to help push us a little further ahead of the pack. The podcast pack is a crowded place with lots of similar sounding podcasts and themes, and we want to be out in front. So if you could do that, that would greatly help us. Anything else, Mark? Our socials? We're on Facebook, Instagram, X, former Twitter, and our audio can be found weekly on YouTube as well.
We're everywhere.
We're everywhere.
We are
yeah.
We're the rash that won't go away.
On the air, everywhere.
Brian, thank you very much. Brian, who is, of course, the man behind the scenes for this escape pod of ours. Thank you.
I'm a little behind. I'm actually editing last week's episode as you guys record
we
this.
throw a lot your way, Brian.
Yeah.
So
it's been a busy weekend, as you guys were talking about.
That's right. Well, Brian, you were with us.
I was.
At the Silver Screen.
Yeah.
Convention, so you got to meet Joe Bob and
I did,
Darcy,
and Darcy, that was awesome. Those guys are the coolest.
They were super
I can't
cool.
say enough about how awesome those two are.
Yeah.
Especially how they treated you when
they
found out how disappointed you were that
Tom Atkins canceled.
Exactly. You were heartbroken. I could see it in your face.
And Darcy could see it, and
Yeah.
Joe Bob could see it.
Yeah.
And boy, was I humiliated rethinking that when I went home that
No,
night. I was like,
there's no reason for you to be humiliated.
But Joe Bob said, listen, we'll get this, because I had made a picture, a print just for Tom Atkins.
And you worked on it for a long time. It looked awesome.
Thank you. And I made a copy for Darcy because she's a huge Tom Atkins fan. So
she really seemed to dig it too.
Yeah. And so they're currently hopefully helping they had me put down an email address and write a little note to Tom Atkins on the back of his print. And they know him. They know how to get in touch with him. So they're going to help get that print to him. So, you know, Joe Bob, Darcy, I mean, everybody. Adam Green, Joe Lynch.
Yeah. Joe Lynch was super nice because he actually came out of, like, he had met you.
Yeah.
And I was just hanging back with Jared. And he actually, like, dove out from behind the table and came out and grabbed my hand and shook my hand and was like, I just wanted to say hi. I didn't want to leave you standing there. And like, and it was super nice.
He was super cool, and his movies are, I mean, their movies are awesome anyway, but like he is, they also have a podcast, The Movie Crypt. They are so much fun. I know we got to wrap this up, I'm sorry, but he was talking to the person in front of me for a while, and then he actually like came up to me before I went, and he's like, dude, I'm sorry I took so long. I'm like, never apologize to me for that. You should talk to your fans.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody was awesome. And they have copies of Werewolf with a Chainsaw, so hopefully they're reading them on the plane home. I don't know.
Nice.
But all right, we're gonna wrap this up. Thank you guys for listening to us. Dean, thank you for joining me again. I can't wait for
thanks for coming back, Dean. Always great having you here.
Always love coming in.
Dean is going to be on Three Geeky Dads a lot during the spooky season.
We hope.
I love Hammer movies.
Yes,
we do. Talk about Hammer.
All right, guys. So until next time, I'm Mark.
I'm Dean.
And I'm Brian.
Hi, Brian. Thank you for listening. Good night.